guys, this is Coach Matt here. As I mentioned when you guys were here, I'm also a doctor of physical therapy, so I just wanted to give you guys a pretty all-encompassing warm-up. Not that you need to be a doctor of physical therapy to know how to warm up properly, but with my schooling and with my training, I do have a pretty good idea of how to warm up different parts of the body, making sure that we're warming up all the parts of the body necessary for climbing. And as you guys probably remember from the warm-up, it's not just about fingers, it's not just about hands, it's about lower body, it's about the hips, it's about the legs, it's about the brain and the neurological system with balance. So again, I hope that you guys were able to take something from the warm-up that we did. I know that's a lot of information, so I'm not expecting everyone to remember everything that we did from one time doing it here in the academy. So that's why we're making this video right now, so that you guys have something to refer to and something that you can always keep with you as you're climbing in your careers and competing recreationally, whatever it is. As I mentioned, I'm not claiming that this is the best warm-up, but this certainly is a very good, all-encompassing warm-up to get all parts of your body ready. Leading up to nationals, I would hope that you would incorporate some of these things into your floor routine. But if you know for yourself that you have a very specific routine that you like to perform, right now might not be the time to change everything. I mean, nationals is only a week and a half, 2 weeks away. So by all means, just use these as guidelines and maybe sprinkle some of these in before nationals. After nationals, that might be a good time to reconsider how you warm up, and then that might be a good time to maybe adopt this as your warm up, or at least start adding a lot of these things to how you warm up. Okay, so we're going to get through with the video, and we're going to start with different parts of the body, go through each thing, and I'll explain things as we go. Okay, so hopefully you enjoy, and thank you very much for attending the camp. Thanks, guys. Okay guys, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is the thoracic spine. So that's the center part of your spine and your torso, but we want to warm up this area so that when you're reaching up overhead, as you can see when I reach up, part of it is extending my back. So we want to make sure that we warm up that part. We're going to do something for extension, and then we're going to do something for rotation. Okay, so the first thing, we call them cactus arms. So you start with your arms in this kind of cactus position, the saguaro cactus, like this. Bring your shoulder blades back together, drop your elbows down towards your back pockets, and look up towards the ceiling. Okay, so some people recognize this as a saguaro cactus, some people recognize it as a goalpost, whatever you need to remember. But you'll do 10 of these, holding for about 1 to 2 seconds in the position. Okay, so that's for extension. The next thing that we did was for rotation. So we call these bow and arrows. So you're going to drop down to one knee. So I'm on one knee, I have my hands forward, and I'm going to open my arms up. And I'm also going to follow with my eyes. I'm going to follow my hand. And I'm going to do 5 rotations one direction and 5 rotations the other direction. Okay, once I've done 5 rotations, I'm going to switch my legs, and then same thing, 5 directions one way, and 5 directions the other way. Okay, so that's a good way to warm up your thoracic spine. Okay, so from here, after we've done the spine, we're going to start from the fingers and work down the arm, okay, and into the shoulder. Okay, so the first thing that you can do for just a general finger warm up are tendon glides. Okay, so if I come a little bit closer to the camera, basically what I'm doing here is I'm taking the pads of the fingers, I'm squeezing them against the palm, and I'm dragging my fingers up. Okay, from a different view, it looks like this. Okay, you're just warming up the tendons, and don't forget your thumb. Make sure that you're warming up your thumb as well. Okay, and these are also a very good movement to do when you're sitting in the chair, just to kind of loosen up your fingers a little bit, certainly to get the blood flowing before climbing, and definitely for after a climbing activity as well. So that's the tendon glides. Okay, the next thing is for some muscles in your hands called the lumbrical muscles. So what you're going to do here is you're going to bring your fingers together. Okay, you're going to bring your wrist back and kind of bring your fingers back. You're only really moving at this joint here, and then you're going to stab your fingers forward. Okay, again, my fingers are together, not splayed apart, they're together, and I'm just going back and forth. Okay, from a different view, just looks like that. Okay, For both of these, for the tendon glides and the lumbrical stabs, it's nice to do them in a climbing specific position like this, okay? Obviously we don't always climb up here. We might have an undercling, we might have a side pull, we might have a Gaston. So you can definitely play with the different positions, but the point is, you know, we don't climb down here all the time. So although this is still warming up those parts of the body, it's better to do it in a more climbing specific position because that is how we perform our task. And our body does, you know, perform or warm up better when we're in the position that we're going to be climbing in. Okay, so arms up overhead or at shoulder height is better than just arms at your side. Okay, so that's for tendon glides and lumbrical stabs. I also have a warm up specifically for pulleys. This is more for older climbers, but every climber could do it as well. And I'll make a separate clip at the end for that one because it's going to be closer to an edge, so I'll move the camera. Okay, so that's for fingers and hands. Okay, so now we're going to warm up the wrists and the forearms, and we're going to kind of bring it into a full body movement as well. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that our hand is a paintbrush, and we're just going to pretend we're painting a fence, called them the paint the fence. Okay, when you go up, you're flexing the wrist and your fingers come down, and then when you come down, you're bending the elbow and extending the wrist and the fingers. Okay, so it almost looks like a tendon glide when you're coming down, but you're just moving through like this. Moving all the joints, the shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, and the fingers. Okay, after you've done a couple of these, what you're going to do is you're going to start to squat down as you come down, and then go up on your tippy toes when you're at the top. Okay, so this is warming up full body, but it is focusing on the wrists and the forearms. Okay, remember when you're climbing, oftentimes we're up on our tippy toes, so that's why we're up on our tippy toes here. And then we want to warm up the glutes and the thighs and all the other muscles all in one motion, okay? So the next thing that we can do for the wrists are this prayer position, okay? But as you notice, I'm going in and out, okay? I'm not sitting here and holding. This would be a static stretch. Before climbing, you don't want to statically stretch the forearm muscles by just holding here, okay? So we're going to move in and out of each one, okay? You'll also notice that I'm doing 4 different wrist positions, okay? Different positions will warm up your muscles in different ways, warm up your joints in different ways, and it's more of an all-encompassing warm-up, okay? So that's for the wrist, the paint the fence motion, and the prayer arms, okay? Wrist warm-up. Okay guys, now we're going to warm up the shoulders, okay? So there's a couple of things that we're going to warm up. We're going to warm up the actual muscles here at the shoulder joint. Some of you are probably familiar with the term the rotator cuff. We're going to warm up some of those muscles, but we're also going to warm up the shoulder blade, the scapula. So we have retraction and protraction, okay? That's another motion of our shoulder, and it comes from our shoulder blade moving. So the first one that we're going to do, we call them scapular push-ups, okay? So you can start in a tabletop position, and you're just going to drop your chest down and then press yourself up towards the ceiling. Drop yourself down and press yourself up. Okay? If you want a little bit more of a challenge, you can come into a full plank position, drop down and press up. Drop down and press up. You want to make sure that you're keeping your elbow straight. Okay? It is not a push-up. It is not this. That is a push-up. We're keeping the elbow straight and we're just moving our shoulder blade. Okay? So that's for the shoulder blade warm-up. For more of a rotator cuff warm-up and the shoulder warm-up, we're going to do high plank to low plank, just back and forth. Okay? So if I start in a high plank position here, if I drop down to low plank, back to high plank, to low plank, back and forth, that's the high plank to low plank. What I don't want to see you guys doing is kind of this rocking back and forth. Okay, so don't rock the boat. You want to try to keep yourself nice and straight in the shoulders as you're going up and down. Okay, so that's a pretty general warm-up for the shoulders and for the shoulder blades. So just a quick note here, when I showed you the scapular push-ups, okay, and the high plank to low plank, I showed you with a extended wrist position, okay? So one thing that you want to keep in mind is before climbing, you want to make sure that you don't stretch out this muscle enough because that would be something that would be better for afterwards. So an alternate for this, the motion is the same, but instead of being on your hands like this, you're going to come into a neutral wrist position instead of an extended, and you'll be on your knuckles, okay? So they would look like this. Okay, so it's the same motion, but I'm just on my knuckles, okay? And then the high plank to low plank would look like this. Okay, so same motion both ways, but you're just making sure that you don't lengthen these muscles before climbing, okay? It's not the end of the world if you do, but it's just better for power production and contact strength of these muscles if we don't overly stretch them before we're climbing. After climbing, by all means, but that would be in another video for recovery and for warm-up. Okay, now we're gonna start warming up the lower body. We're gonna warm up the hips. So the first thing that we can do is the open gate position. So you'll do 5 to 10 on each side. Okay, that's the open gate. Now you're going to close the gate, start from the outside and come in. Outside and come in. Okay, we're going to do a separate balance and neurological warm-up, but this is a single leg stance with movement, so this is also helping to warm up your balance, okay? So that's the first thing that we can do for the hips. The second thing that we can do for the hips are the bridges. And if you guys remember, we did 2 different positions. We did a regular bridge and we did a frog bridge, okay? So the glute muscles right here, okay, and the hamstring muscles, we call that the posterior chain. And those muscles are very important for keeping your hips close to the wall when you're on overhanging terrain. It's also just very important for leg stability. So if you're a climber, you probably know what it feels like to stand on one leg on a really, really precarious hold, especially if you're on slab. So we want to start warming up these muscles, but also another really important reason for warming up the hamstrings in particular are for heel hooks, okay? When you guys have a really, really strong heel hook, your hamstring muscle here is the most important muscle in that, and it can be a very intense exercise. So we want to make sure, or a very intense motion, excuse me. So that's why it's important to warm up those muscles before you do the intense motion on the wall, okay? So open the gates, that's just for, kind of more the mobility, but now we're gonna warm up the muscles, specifically the glutes and the hamstrings. So the regular bridge, you're going to lie on the ground, okay? You're gonna place your heels, roughly about arm's length apart or from you, okay? You're gonna push through your heels. I like to lift my toes up. You're gonna lift your hips up off the ground, hold for 2 seconds, and then come back down, okay? Lift up. Push through the heels, and come back down. Okay, you'll do about 10 of those. The next, you're gonna bring your heels together, let your knees fall out to the side. These are the frog bridges. And these are gonna warm up a little bit more the hamstrings. Same motion, hips up towards the ceiling, hold for 2 seconds, and lower down. 2 seconds, lower down. And then to warm up your hamstrings even more, you're gonna push your heels away from you farther, and then the same thing. And release. You'll feel this a little bit more in the hamstrings to warm up for heel hooks. If you want to go the extra step for warming up for heel hooks, you can actually take one of your heels, put it on the other one, okay? So my left heel is planted. This heel is on the foot, and I'm pulling back on this right heel as I lift up. Okay, this is going to be way more intense, but if you know you're going to encounter a heel hook, if you're a competition climber, you're probably going to encounter a heel hook at some point. This is a good warm-up to do for sure. Okay, so those are bridges and the open and closed gates for lower body and for hip warm-up. Okay, another one that we can do, and this is starting to get into some of the neuro warm-up, are single leg Romanian deadlift. Okay, so a Romanian deadlift essentially is this motion here. Okay, but for single leg, as it sounds, we're going to stand on one leg. The back leg is going to stay parallel with our torso. We're going to lean forward and then come straight back up. Okay, notice how I'm only bending from this hip. I'm not arching my back, and this leg is not on the ground. I want to make sure that this back leg and my torso is one line. So as I go down, the leg comes up in the back, and you come through. You're going to feel this a lot in your hamstring. You're going to feel it a little bit here. You might feel some in your calf, but this is a warm-up for balance and also for the posterior chain, okay? So that's a pretty good all-encompassing warm-up for hips, hamstrings, and some of the balance. Okay, so now to finish up some of the neurological warm-up. So again, kind of the balance and again, lower body, just kind of training ourselves to stand on that one leg. We're gonna do flags. We're gonna do regular flags and reverse flags, okay? So if I stand on my right leg here and I reach over with my right arm, that would be a regular flag. Okay, from a different angle, stand on one leg, reach over, and come back. That's the regular flag. The reverse flag, if I'm standing on that same leg, I'm gonna reach with my opposite hand and my left leg, or my other leg will go behind me for a reverse flag. Okay, for a slightly added challenge for both of these, you're gonna follow your hand with your eyes. It's gonna challenge your vision system a little bit as you drop down into your flag. So the same thing for the regular flag, okay? Finally, the last thing that we can do for a neurological warm-up, we're gonna do walking lunges with a single leg stance, okay? So if I'm walking towards you, I'm gonna walk into a lunge, and then when I take my next step, I'm gonna come up into a single leg stance, and then I'm gonna twist from side to side to challenge my balance, take another step, twist to challenge my balance, and then keep walking forward. An alternative that you can do, you're gonna take a step forward, lunge, and then as you stand, you're gonna come into a side angle pose, okay? Take your next step, come up into another side angle pose, and then keep taking steps into lunges, okay? That's gonna warm up the musculature in the lower body, but it's also gonna challenge your balance system, okay? Okay guys, so this is a more specific warm-up to make sure that you're getting enough warm-up in the tendons, in the pulleys in the fingers. Again, I had mentioned that this is a little bit more geared towards the older climbers, but really any climber should be also thinking about warming up the tendons in their hands, okay? But older climbers are more prone to pulley injuries than younger climbers, okay? That's the distinction there. So basically, all you need is a flat edge, okay? You don't need a hangboard, you don't need anything fancy, you just need a flat edge. If you don't have any edge, you can also just use the heel of your hand, okay? But what we're doing here is we're placing ourselves into either a half crimp or a full crimp position. We're not using the thumb, okay? And I'm not hanging. I'm not taking my feet off the ground. All I'm doing here is I'm loading all 4 fingers in a half crimp or a full crimp position. I'm gonna pull down about 20 times. Okay, I'm not doing much. I'm literally just kind of pulsing into my fingertips. Again, my feet are still on the ground. About 20 times. Do some tendon glides in between. Do another 20 pulses. Okay, 20 pulses, and then do some more tendon glides. And you want to do about 100 of those pulses total. I know it sounds like a lot, but it really only takes about 2 or 3 minutes, okay? After you do 20 pulses, tendon glides, do another 20 for about 40, then do in a full crimp position, okay? So you want to alternate half crimp. Half crimp is 90 degrees here, flat at this joint, and then a full crimp is more flexion at the PIP and a little bit of hyperextension at the DIP, okay? So about 100 moves before you start climbing should be sufficient to warm up the tendons and the fingers, okay? So everything that we did as a floor warm-up is very important, but this is also more of a specific warm-up for the fingers and for the tendons, okay? All right guys, so thank you for watching the video of the warm-up that we spoke about here at camp. Again, I hope that you can take some of these ideas, enter them into your own warm-ups. Hopefully this can replace some of your warm-ups. If you don't have a complete warm-up, hopefully this can give you some ideas. And feel free to always reach out and ask any questions. But remember, if you don't have time to warm up, you don't really have time to climb. Being a proactive climber and making sure that you're trying to prevent injury is a really, really important aspect of climbing, of any sports really in general, but especially for climbing because it can be very intensive on the body, okay? So again, thank you very much for attending the camp, and we hope to see you guys again soon. Take care.